You kick them out. Get out.
I mean, that's why I'm asking if people are okay with recording. If not, then we just won't do it. It's fine if they don't want to for personal data leakage or otherwise. But yeah, now we're recording, so let's kick it off. So we're in Bitcoin Design Guide Jam session number 11. I put one issue on the list, which was the savings account case study that I've been working on. Then there was a Stephen suggested one, which was Lightning Wallet configuration visualizations. And then are there any other topics, anything you'd like to discuss? I just put here in this notes doc, which is also linked to in the sidebar. I just put in a few extra things if we just generally want to discuss more Lightning guide content, how everybody's doing with Lightning. Seems like people are a little bit off on their own doing things. We can also talk about that if we'd like. How does that look? Any other topics?
The main one seemed good.
Okay. Has anybody gotten a chance to watch that video I created about the case study that I'm working on? No.
I skimmed it a little bit.
Okay, cool. So this is it. If you let me just pull up the original page here too. Let me move myself. So this is the page right now. It was actually part of the private key management section that Daniel worked on. And then it was extracted into its own case study. It lays out a 2 of 3 multi-sig that's meant for more storing larger amounts, and you get the benefit of the multi-sig security. And you hold one key on your phone, one key in a hardware wallet, and one key has the wallet provider. And then here's a Figma prototype, and then there are a few screens here for the onboarding sequence. So this is something I've been wanting to do for some time because I'm really into the multi-sig topic, is multiple things. So it's updating the visuals, making them using the wallet UI kit. So you can see the graphics here are way more detailed. There's no placeholder text in them anymore. So just a visual overhaul. And then also laying out more of the individual user flows. So it's not just one anymore, but it's pretty much all of them. So you have the initial setup, you have small payments, large payments, you have key recovery, and then 2 different types of key recovery, and then also changing spending limits. Spending limits is a new functionality added to this one. So if the original case study, it was like, okay, you just need to approve it and you can spend anything. In this new one, if you just send a very low amount, you have the cloud key can automatically sign it and send it off. But if you want to send a large amount, and that's a limit you can define, you need to get your hardware wallet out and sign it manually. So let me see. There was some other stuff that I did here. Yeah, and then some other question here I had in this document too was for you guys, and gals, this is called savings account. This whole page in case study is called savings account. Now it's no longer just a savings account. I was wondering also if we should change the title and also change how we present it for SEO purposes. Like if somebody searches this, what they think savings account represents, what they're looking for. So that's it. So it's just an overhaul of a lot of different things. The copy itself actually is mostly the same with just slight tweaks. So we could potentially add more technical references, technical details, link to BIPs or whatever you want, if we want to. It's also an open question. Yeah, that's where I'm at right now. So any feedback from like big picture, this is like, if you say like, the other one was better because it was more precise, this one's way too much, that's fine. Or if you think it's ugly or think it's awesome, anything is helpful. So please ask questions or let me know what you think here.
It's very nice looking. Is this a PR that's live?
Yes, so in the here in the notes document, you'll get a link to the preview. that video where I'm explaining the whole thing in pretty much 9 minutes, and then a pull request that's currently in draft mode because I wanted to give more. I didn't want Pavlin X to do his thing where it's just like YOLO merge, but I wanted to get more feedback and more conversation around it.
Yeah, I can take a read through it and when I have some time and do a more in-depth read through of it. But yeah, I think it's looking very, very nice compared to the previous one, I think. I have some thoughts on SEO too, but that's probably a larger conversation about SEO. And so maybe, see if anybody else has any comments or things they want to discuss before I dive into that topic.
Go
on, John. So I was just, go on, John. Go on.
No, I was just saying, I do recognize this page now as I'm looking at it. Me and Pav were having a look this weekend. I was wondering, there's this concept of like covenants covenants involved that I recently started like trying to like understand, and one of the points in it is that there's like 2 separate transactions in order to like move some funds. Is that going to be covered within such kind of page for savings?
No, so I think so whenever I think of covenant, I have to think of alien covenant. That's pretty much the only term that I've heard of from the movie. So I think what that is probably more on the when you're at cold storage of €1 million or so. I think here we're more in the range of monthly spending, slightly larger transactions, but not life savings. If I understand correctly the use case, and you'd have to explain how this works with 2 transactions. And I'm sure that it requires a more elaborate setup too.
Well, perhaps there are a few companies like Refault, I think, and I think they even presented at one of. I think they presented a design.
Yeah, I remember them.
Yeah. So the first transaction signals that someone is attempting to spend the money and gives the user a chance to block the second transaction that actually completes the spend. So I don't think it's necessarily like it has to be like $1 million. I mean, I probably, relative like $1,000 could be $1 million for someone somewhere, right?
Yeah. So I think the way. So this is also from Daniel's earlier things. The way this was structured was in the case studies. You have daily spending, and that's basically your cloud backup, which we'll probably update with Lightning also somehow. Right? So it's just like small payments, coffee, that type of thing. Then savings account is more your monthly budgeting. You pay your rent, you get income, and then beyond that is the other case study of long-term savings. And that's where I would more put the Vault Covenant type of model.
Now, is there a reason why you don't want to label this savings account?
I don't know. We could call this multi-sig wallet, for example, or multi-sig savings wallet, right? Savings account sounds very like I have an account at my bank.
Yeah, I was gonna say that. I was gonna say I think it's the account. The account is the kind of feels like the mechanism, whereas savings is the action, right? So I feel like the focus should be. It could literally just be savings or like long-term savings or like the account. Maybe we don't necessarily have to actually frame it as like an account, because when I think of account as well, you've got other maybe types of functionality that come with it as well. So, and it doesn't necessarily completely line up with like traditional savings account, right? Like you don't get interest and you don't get all of these type of things.
Yeah, I mean, I see the hesitation to use the word account. On the other hand, it's part of what we're doing, I think, with the guide is we're trying to make this more accessible to designers in some cases, and showing them how Bitcoin as a technology can fit into people's lives. So comparing it to a savings account, I think, is a very understandable idea to someone a designer that might be learning about Bitcoin for the first time. Like, think about this single key hot wallet. Think about that as being kind of like a checking account. Think of this multi-sig wallet as being kind of like a savings account. So maybe the title needs to become longer. Maybe it has a subtitle. Maybe it's like savings wallet, subtitle, replicating a traditional savings account with a Bitcoin multi-sig approach or something like that.
Now, if we're thinking of, the reason why I asked is that I'm looking at this and there's a savings account and the upgradable account and the shared account. And I do think it could be just savings, maybe. If we're thinking of people that don't know anything about or enough about Bitcoin, and then you can use the terms, I think.
Yeah, because I'm also thinking like youth who will never see the traditional banking system, like savings account doesn't necessarily make that much sense maybe to that demographic. As it stands now, yeah, to people who have savings accounts probably makes sense, but might not make sense to that kind of younger demographic maybe.
Should we ask the wider group?
Yeah, I think this is a good discussion, good topic for debate for sure.
Johns, one thing that I wanted to show here is, because while I was doing it, I realized, okay, this is actually perfect for the progressive security model. Because if somebody just gets this wallet and they don't have a hardware device, they're screwed. They can't use it, right? But ideally, it could start with just being single key, and then you could upgrade to multi-key. But I didn't want to repeat this because we already have a case study for it. And so I'm just explaining that here, like this could really be progressive security, but that's covered in the other case study. So I'm wondering if Johns, if we want to cover this vault or covenant structure, it could be similar, where we say, okay, here's kind of the most basic version of this. If we want to have another variation of this, another layer on top of this could be this, and it's described over here.
Yeah, perhaps. Yeah, probably have to see it a bit more visually, but yeah, I think that could work.
Yeah. And one other thing here is that I used the cold card interactions here, guides to explain. And I'm wondering if at some point, because it requires you to have a iPhone SD card adapter and then plug in your SD into your phone and copy the file and then plug it back. It's kind of tedious. And I'm wondering if, I don't know, it just felt like a lot of screens were just about this cold card stuff, which I don't know.
What about it going the more what's the hardware wallet where it's has PSBT and QR code support? Keystone, is it Keystone? It used to be called something else, right?
The old Kobo vaults. Yeah.
Kobo vault. Have you thought about exploring that side of things? Because that wouldn't require any other additional adapters or anything, from my knowledge, anyway.
I think I actually have mock-ups for that from the My Mattress.
Oh, okay.
Designs. I could pull those in. Yeah, it's kind of becoming unwieldy a little bit, this page. And there's more stuff you could add, like what's not covered in here. It covers if you lose your cloud storage access, and it covers if you lose your signing device. It does not cover if you lose your phone, what you do. Which I feel like at some point we should discuss that somehow, somewhere. I don't know if this is the place for it, but it just feels like this could get so big, this whole thing.
That's a good point, actually. If you lost your phone, what would you do? So you can recover the cloud one just by signing into your cloud provider.
So Moon has a
sorry. Is this one? This is using two hardware wallets, yeah?
No, this one has one cloud signer. So it's the wallet provider has a service where they hold one key. And they can assist you with recovery. So Moon provides on GitHub a recovery tool, and what's put on your cloud storage provider is not just the key; it's a whole emergency kit that has everything you need to recover. So, and that's a PDF that's just stored in the root of your cloud storage. But I think you write down a password or a PIN. So that password or PIN with that emergency kit allows you to use the Moon recovery tool to just sweep all of your funds to some new wallet. That's how they have it set up. And that's totally not obvious. And I think that tool is actually a command line tool also. So there's some stuff where we could probably help out with UX. The total unsexy part of security, backup and recovery. But yeah. Anyhow, so any feedback, and you can leave it directly on the PR. I can also send the link to Figma, and you put comments in there, which I will just add it to this document. It's so big that I would really appreciate some good feedback.
And kind of just what were some of the concerns around SEO and this page? Was it just the name, the page, the savings account page name, or was there another concern?
Just discoverability.
Yeah.
That people actually find this thing if somebody searches for it, because it's kind of hidden under case studies, and it's called savings account, which doesn't hint at all around at multi-sig.
Are you talking about someone who's already familiar with the fact that the page exists, or they're looking for stuff on this topic of like?
Yeah, more so that, just general discoverability. Okay. And I just wanted to throw it out too, because I'm not super pumped about the names. I just wanted to throw it out to the group and see what everyone thinks. And if we decide to keep it, that's cool too. So
as a general note about SEO, it's I'm not an SEO expert, but I know enough about kind of the modern techniques of it, just at least from working with my clients' websites. Or I don't advertise that as a service that I do for people, but I've worked with SEO people. I get the kind of the gist of it nowadays, and my understanding of modern SEO is just that it's entirely scoped to like really specific things people are searching for. So like someone has to be searching for, like, the only way you can really rank for a term nowadays is to be like Bitcoin. So you got to find someone searching for Bitcoin meetups in Atlanta, or whatever your place, whatever your term is for. And so my thoughts around SEO and the design guide is that I don't really know how effective any efforts that we do for SEO are going to be, because I feel like there's not really another resource out there like what we're doing here. And I don't know if people are even going to be searching for, like, is someone going to search for how to design a 2 of 3 multi-sig Bitcoin wallet? So, my thoughts are just that most of the energy should be around just like trying to promote the guide on social media and trying to get the word out and things like that. And the SEO problem will kind of solve itself over time.
And not totally agree. And the AGO, the human, I don't know, whatever, human content finding experience.
Yeah. Making
it so actually somehow find their way to it. Maybe cross-referencing, making sure those overview pages have good descriptions.
Yeah, stuff like that I think is really good.
Cool. Any other questions or thoughts on this one? Otherwise, Daniel said he's working on the daily spendings case study. He said he started it but hasn't made a ton of progress. But I feel like if generally we're happy with this type of case study update, we can also just go through all the case studies. And then that could also kind of set the tone for our future updates to the onboarding and payments once we integrate Lightning into those. because then we kind of upgraded that section over here, and we can just kind of port it over to the other section. Maybe it will help.
Sounds good.
Yep.
Okay.
I don't quite get that. What do you mean by porting it over for the payments and onboarding?
So I haven't thought this out in a ton of detail, but for example, if this section already covers cloud backup and, for example, recovery of your cloud storage very well, we're going to rely more on cloud storage for our Lightning wallet, I think. So if we already have some of this stuff here, we can just port it over, right? That's what I was kind of hoping.
You mean
so
like expanding it? You mean like by porting? You mean like expanding?
Yeah, like there's some designs already here. We can just use those or reference them in our main wallet. So I was just thinking that I bet some of the updates we do here will be super relevant once kind of the Lightning stuff comes together. And then whether we keep it here and link here or whether we move it into those other sections, we can figure that out. But I feel like we're doing a lot of adjacent reusable work.
For sure.
Like the emergency kit, if the emergency kit becomes part of this case study, we can just move it over to the other section.
Yeah, like it. For the daily spending one, is it going to start using the Bitcoin UI kit or?
Yeah, I think so. So I only Daniel just briefly mentioned that he started on it. I don't know if he's really just wants to do a visual revision of it, make it more high fidelity, or if he also wants to change something about the wallet. Just like I'm introducing this auto signing for low amounts here in this one, which is a change to how the wallet works. I'm not sure. Maybe we can ask him to create an issue or PR so we kind of know what the deal is.
Something relating to the to something on Twitter that someone recently posted to me. I think Connor responded to it with a page for the private key management Bitcoin backup section. Was do we present the words? I'm sorry if this is a side note, but do we present like do we suggest like how the words should be, the recovery code should be listed out?
That was Alex, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was Alex. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's pretty well covered in the onboarding section.
It's on the onboarding.
Manual backup here. There's a bunch of stuff on it. I really don't think, there's like, okay, you can just show 4 at a time. You can show 1 at a time. You can tap and hold to reveal them so nobody else can see them. Here's this type of layout. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think it's a very minor usability thing. I mean, of course, it's good to note that people write this down in the right way. That's why I also like the idea of having a printable blank PDF that with the same columns and maybe in the numbers even pre-printed. So you just print that and then you just write the words down. Yeah.
Okay. Well, then maybe because Connor responded to it, so I just assumed like it was something, but I guess I didn't like really properly look at the link. And because like when I read it something like the manual. I guess this is kind of like what Stephen was saying, right? Like how specific are the page titles, right? Because like on Twitter, it felt like one of the private key management pages. Maybe I'm just bad at paying attention.
Yeah.
Oh, did the link have private key in it? Should the URL? Maybe.
Yeah.
Let me just double check.
Yeah. No. It just said like manual backup. So for me, I was thinking about. Yeah, I was thinking about the private key management page. So I'm like, manual backup, okay. So I guess like in terms of that, if we could have like better titles for there, it could. Yeah. I think maybe we could look into that.
And also another thing to consider just on a technical note is that like, the title that is present there at the H1 at the top of the page doesn't necessarily need to be the title that appears when it shares on social media. We can use Open Graph metadata and Twitter card metadata in in the head of the document to adjust the title so that it's like more specific or different when it gets shared somewhere, if that's helpful.
I don't think Jekyll allows us to do that right now. We'll have to mess a little bit because we really have three needs for this title. One is in the sidebar where it needs to be kind of short. One's on the page itself. And the third one is in the page title that gets shown when you search it on Google or share it on social media. And then the other question is, who's going to go through all the pages and create those and make them perfect?
Well, I don't know necessarily that. Yeah, I mean, no, I hear you about Jekyll. I don't know what the underlying code for that looks like, but just speaking about it hypothetically, if it were easy to implement, you'd set it up in such a way such that the social title overrides the main title. Yeah. So, like, the page has a title, and like you can override it for specific situations. So we don't have to, no one has to go through and like completely change every single title. It's just like we highlight this one page and be like, oh, I want this one to have a different title on social. Yep. So then we just like override that one.
Good call, very practical. Yeah, okay. Let's actually take a note on that one. Somebody already take a note?
It says manual backup, how to manually back up the recovery phrase of the Bitcoin wallet. So that's why I was assuming it was the private key management chapter, you know?
Okay. So you already know the guide really well. The question is, if somebody who doesn't know the guide sees this, what would they expect the right thing?
No, I know the guide, and I still thought it was the private key management one. That's the problem.
Yeah.
Even for me, so for somebody else, they'll just be like, okay, this is something about backing up the manual, the key.
Yeah, which it is. I feel like sometimes it's better to just take a screenshot of that section and just post that in Twitter instead of the links, so people know exactly what.
We could use some of the headings for the description, this page covers when to reveal a recovery phrase, how we talk about recovery phrases, and how to display them. You know, that could be that could be a social media title.
Where does Jekyll get the description? Because I'm looking at your page, right? The savings account, that it picks that up as a title. And so it puts it as a title on Open Graph and on Twitter card. But for the summary, it says case study for a Bitcoin wallet designed for storing medium amounts.
Yeah, that's in the. You look in the Markdown file. It's at the very top in the front matter. That's where you define, the image to use, the title, the description.
Yeah, but
you don't see it on the page.
Yeah, no, I know. But where did you? Does Jekyll automatically pick it up from something that you did, or do you fill it out individually?
Oh yeah, that's custom. That might actually be Daniel's original copy from when he created that case study. Yeah, that's manually created. So the tricky thing where you need to please both search engines so they understand what you're looking for, which is different than conveying to you people what a page is about. It's a fine art.
Yeah, I just read open up the manual backup and private key management and the onboarding. I'm seeing that we have a bit of duplication there, so that might be something that we could kind of look into also.
Sorry, which one? The 2 pages called manual backup?
Yeah, so I have 2 tabs open. They both call the same thing, manual backup, backup, but one is in private key management, one is in onboarding.
I was looking at the other day, and I thought that those are very similar pages.
Well, the onboarding one goes into more visuals.
Yeah, once the technology, how it works, the other one is how to present it to users, the user experience. Which is good. I think that's a good split. But yeah, the names should be unique. Okay, let's get Maggie back in here. Come up with new page names.
I don't think that's going to be happening, is it?
Okay. All right, should we move on to next topic?
Let's go.
Cool.
Okay, next topic would be Lightning Wallet configuration visualizations. Stephen, would you like to take over?
Okay. Can everybody see my Figma screen okay?
No, not yet.
Yeah.
Now you can?
Yeah.
Yes. No.
Okay. So let me back up a little bit and go to the top of this document and explain what we're looking at here. So I think on one of the previous calls about the Lightning Network, I had shared a Google Drive document, just kind of, detailing different ways that, Lightning wallets could be set up. Because it's a little bit more complicated, I think, than a Layer 1 wallet. There's just a lot of different ways you can make this thing work. And so, Christoph and I were messaging about it, and he suggested that it would be good to be able to visualize how some of these different, configurations are set up. And what I'm doing here is not really proposing that we need to, include all of this content in the guide or even discuss all of this. This is just me trying to test my own understanding of it and, present it in a visual way so that we kind of understand what we're designing for. So when I think about like a Lightning Wallet configuration, there's a couple different details I think we have to think about. Top of mind is obviously like the keys. Not your keys, not your coins. So where do the user's keys reside? Where does the Lightning node reside? That's what's actually going to send and receive payments over the Lightning network. So that's pretty crucial. Then you got to think about the Bitcoin node. So the Lightning node needs to actually to be able to talk to the Bitcoin node. Like it needs to be able to actually verify activity on the blockchain. Just as an example, you have your funding transaction to fund a payment channel. So the Lightning node needs to be able to see that somehow. And then inbound liquidity is incredibly important. And it's like one of those really obtuse sounding words. But the key difference we have to keep in mind is a user creates a Bitcoin wallet for the first time, a Layer 1 Bitcoin wallet. They can receive Bitcoin immediately without doing anything. But with a Lightning wallet, you actually have to get that inbound payment channel in order to send money. So there's an extra step there. And there's many different solutions and ways of handling that. But it's worth keeping in mind that that's a step that needs to be solved. And then there's just the concept of managing payment channels and if the user has to do that and if they don't have to do that. And so me trying to visualize that, put that into a way is I've just tried to take those features, lay them out, like who does that. So this is an idea of like a custodial provider. And the user down here has a phone with a wallet app. And then there's the wallet provider. And the wallet provider handles everything. Keys, liquidity, channels, Bitcoin, Lightning. I put a question mark because who knows what else goes on there. And examples to me of that were Strike or Zebedee. And so these are like really good ways of onboarding people to Lightning and just getting them stacking sats, but it's kind of outside the scope of the guide because it's custodial. So like a kind of another way of looking at this would be a hub connection. And my example of that is Blue Wallet in its current iteration. Though I know that a lot of this is going to be probably changing with the transition to LDK. So I may have some details wrong about the future here. And just as a general disclaimer, I may have some details about some of these wallets wrong. So I welcome being corrected on this because it will help me learn. But like a general idea of like how, like say Blue Wallet and LND Hub would work is that you essentially have a hub and it runs the Lightning node, the Bitcoin node, channel management, keys, and all of that, and then creates payment channels with other people's nodes. And this is kind of a semi-custodial solution because like the idea is like if I pulled out Blue Wallet and installed it right now on my phone, by default, it's going to connect to Blue Wallet's LND hub, which is why I have the little organization icon, that one right there. So they kind of do run that hub and it is custodial, but the magic in this kind of solution is that somebody could run their own hub. So if I wanted to run my own hub, I could do that. And for me, that would be non-custodial because I'm running my own hub and I run my own keys. But then another thing to consider is that you could run a hub, an L&D hub for your family or your friends, and then they could connect to you. So to them, it's still a custodial relationship. You're their custodian, but they're not trusting like a big corporation or a company they don't know. It's like they're trusting their friend or their family member. And I think Alexa brought this up on a previous call, the idea that someone, say in a Hispanic culture might be like, very family oriented. And so like someone in a place like El Salvador, like the older people might trust the younger people in their family to, set up the technology for them and run it. And I think Christoph mentioned hearing it on a podcast that in one country, there it may have been El Salvador, it may have been another country, but they were setting up these L&D hubs so that there would be like one L&D hub for the community. So one person would run that hub for the community, but everyone else would just connect. So this would be like an example of that situation. So it's less custodial than this situation, but it's still custodial. And then taking it down, a step from that might be something like what Breeze Wallet is doing. And so they've got the way their app works is they actually spin up a Lightning node on your phone, and it runs a Bitcoin Lite client, which I think is using Neutrino. So it's not a full Bitcoin node. It downloads block filters, and you can set up your own channels and do all of that, and you also manage your own keys. But kind of the interesting thing from a user experience perspective about what they're doing here is that they're kind of pioneering this concept of like LSPs, Lightning Service Providers. So when you download the app for the first time, it is configured to automatically connect and form a payment channel with their node. So they're acting as an LSP. They're providing you with inbound liquidity from the outset, which is really nice because the user doesn't have to worry about thinking about that. And I'm reading their documentation. I may be getting some things wrong, but the way I understand it is that eventually they want to have it set up so that you could connect to other LSPs in the future if you wanted to. Right now, I think that's kind of an under the hood developer feature. Like you can go to the developer screen on their app and you can find some functions about channel connections, open channel, closed channel, but it's not really like a clean looking UI. It's more of just like an experimental developer feature at that stage. But I think this is a really interesting setup because the user controls their own keys and they have a light client. They're kind of able to validate their own transactions and all of that. But there's just a really easy to use way for the user to start receiving Lightning pre-configured from the get-go, which is really kind of neat. And then there would be like, this would be an example of like a full node setup. And so this is, this would be an example of like me running my Umbrel node and setting up my Zeus wallet to that. So my Umbrel node, if you noticed, I took previously in these other examples, the orange boxes had the little business icon on it. Well, now it has a person icon because I actually run both of these things now. So I got my Lightning node, my Bitcoin node on the Umbrel node. The Umbrel node can manage channels. My keys are also there, but also my Zeus wallet can connect to the Umbrel node, and I can actually manage channels directly from my device. And I can form payment channels with other LN nodes to get inbound liquidity from there. So this is like a highly sophisticated power user option right here, which provides the most amount of flexibility. And kind of like we were talking about in a previous call, it might not be our primary objective to design for this kind of content in the guide, because 99% of the users probably aren't going to be using this kind of stuff. I think that 99% of users are probably going to be using this kind of thing right here, something like Breeze, where it's flexible, but it's pre-configured to use an LSP for inbound liquidity, or they might be using something like again, a kind of a semi-custodial solution where they have a trusted person, someone they trust that's running the hub. And then kind of another option, which I didn't have time to mock up because quite frankly, I don't fully understand it yet, would be something like Moon, which I think if I drew the diagram for Moon, it would look way different than any of these, because I think somebody mentioned that they're doing like submarine swaps or something like that. So I think the Moon diagram would look drastically different than any of this right there. So that was hopefully that wasn't too long-winded and technical for everybody, but that's just kind of what I've been working on, and hopefully these kind of visualizations are helpful. And I guess just kind of the feedback I would be looking for were do these kinds of visualizations help you understand Lightning wallets better, or do they confuse you even more? And did I get anything technically wrong here? And what could we add to these kinds of visualizations to improve everyone's understanding?
I got some comments, but perhaps let some other people get in first.
Cool.
Don't be shy, people.
I was just gonna say quickly that it's nice that you're going through these explorations, because I think it helps understand things easier. So thank you.
Yeah, I think it's excellent. This is exactly what I was hoping for. And I did get some stuff wrong with what I said with these L&D hub setups. I was referencing Galloy, but I didn't totally understand what they were doing, which John's now has a lot more detail on there. But yeah, I do think Moon is a little bit of a different story, and they're still changing. But as you mentioned, what we focus on primarily, there's probably a lot of flexibility with some of these, where the liquidity comes from and how the channels are managed. As long as people are in control of their funds, as long as they hold their keys and nobody can freeze or take away their funds. And then if we make that as a basic requirement, then we probably only have a handful of configurations that are possible.
Yeah, and that's a good point. I mean, the only one on this list here or the only two where people are in full control of their funds are these second two configurations here, and really you could almost again, if we assume that this is for power users right down here and just like save that for another day, that would mainly mean that we would need to focus on this kind of thing right here.
Yeah. Go on.
Yeah, and I was just going to say, there's a ton of detail in there with submarine swaps and turbo channels and this liquidity stuff. It gets, and describing exactly what the nodes do and how to deal with different situations in the UI, and it's going to get on the surface. The ideal experience is going to be pretty straightforward, but there will be so many things that can go wrong and fringe cases and whatnot. And this also, I don't know, Connor, you might be able to speak better to this. This seems like a really tough project to build. So if LDK doesn't make this super easy, this seems like you need a really world-class team to build something like this.
Oh yeah, well, from my experience so far in learning, I think where LDK I hope will shine is that it's super composable, and that I think the term the team uses is like there's these batteries which will allow like a product team to hook in to custom things, such as like, for example, the custom key storage. There'll just be the LDK will just provide a module which you plug into, but it won't have opinions about what provider to use. Same thing with like getting blockchain data. Like you could have, as a product team, you could have your own Bitcoin node running on a server somewhere and just connect to it on a client server basis, or you could use something like Electrum. So there's customizations with like how you get blockchain data, and like, so I think LDK provides like a way to have like basically do the range of different experiences, whereas like the current Lightning implementations are like these monolithic code from a code point of view, so they don't really allow for this kind of exploration. So yeah, hopefully in the kind of near future we can actually start. It makes it easy for teams to iterate on like some of these architectures.
It would be interesting for somebody from the LDK team to also look at this study and see what they think.
Yeah, that's a good suggestion actually. Mate, have you posted the Figma link in the chat? I can try and share that.
Yeah, I was yeah, I'm happy to do that. I haven't done it yet.
No worries. Yeah, I think that's a good shot actually.
Yeah.
I was gonna post it to Slack after this call.
Yeah, I mean, if you need to tidy up or whatever, there's no rush or whatever. But
No,
yeah.
I think it's probably about ready to go if I can figure out. I mean,
So-
go for it, Johns.
Yeah. So one thing I would say that that's kind of like missing from this, it's like, okay, there's the blockchain data, the channel management, the keys. Yeah. Now the keys are kind of like part of this LN node, right? Like intrinsically, like fair enough. You may also have like on-chain keys as well. But like for this diagram here, like how I guess how something like LND works, like the keys are kind of baked in, right?
Got it.
Right.
Okay.
So there's other components that are also baked into this, and the Ellen book has like a really great breakdown of it, which is I think there's like 5 different layers. So there's like the network connection layer, the messaging layer, the peer-to-peer layer, the routing layer, the payment layer, and then of course you have like, I guess you have this like storage layer and stuff as well for the backups and whatnot. Now LDK doesn't make any assumptions on where the storage happens, right? So that's why you could like plug in any kind of like storage mechanism that you want, whether it's a cloud provider or on device or wherever or remote server, right? So that's one point there. Now for the diagram that you have about full nodes, right? So I would actually classify this one as a remote node because you have a device that's kind of like connecting to like the actual full node. So this I would classify it as a remote node. And then like what is the full node then that's running on the mobile device? Because in the Bitcoin design guide we kind of like we have everything in the context of mobile devices. So what is a full node running on the device, or what does a light node look like that's running on the device? Well, a full node running on the device has the like all those 5 aspects, all those 5 layers running on the device, which is the network connection, the messaging, the peer-to-peer, the routing, and the payments, right?
Gotcha.
Now this of course is very heavy for a mobile device. So then what can you start to do? What you can start to do, and in these 5 layers, it doesn't include the keys, and it doesn't include keys, and it doesn't include storage, right? So we're gonna keep those aside for now. What these mobile applications like Moon and stuff, and I don't know all the technical details from Moon either. But with things like LDK, what you'll start seeing people do is to offload parts of those layers to remote services, right? So for example, one thing that you may have to do, if you like, you receive an invoice, you have like some data in the invoice that that tells you like where that payment is going to be directed, right? It has to you have to find a path to be able to make that payment, right?
Yep.
In order to find a path, you need like the like some like a portion or of the like the lightning graph, right? Now again, to do this on a device, it may be too, you know, it may be too much to do it on the device. So maybe you could do those routing calculations, right? To figure out the path on a remote server. Maybe it's Breeze, maybe it's Moon, maybe somewhere ABC company or whatever, right?
That's what trampoline nodes are, right?
So then trampoline nodes.
And that's a good point as well, and that's something that Rene Picard just released a paper about as well. Actually, he's got like some optimal. Well, I guess it will give you how likely a payment is to go through based on some new algorithm. And actually, yeah, that what John's just said is true around like the computational, like the computation needed to do that beforehand is quite intensive. So yeah, I definitely see a place where you would offload that as well. So that's a good point.
Yeah, so perhaps on that payment layer, you're generating invoices on the device, but all of like the routing, the peer-to-peer, the messaging, the network connection is all done somewhere else. You understand?
Yeah, yeah. At a high level, I follow you.
Yeah.
So
now, sorry, last thing. So now you have in these diagrams things about like channel management and inbound liquidity and whatnot. So as you mentioned, a product like Breeze, you create channels with, they automatically create a channel for you, that first channel, and they give you some inbound liquidity and whatnot. But you can still open up like additional channels, right? So that channel creation part and that I don't know necessarily how to call it, if to call it channel management, because technically you're not managing any channels. You just have like one really, you have your first channel is a very well connected with a very well connected node with a lot of liquidity, right?
yeah.
So you're not really like there's no need for you to manage a channel in like in that case.
Yes, correct. But what I'm trying to say is I could be wrong on this, but I've been poking around in their like Medium articles and developer documentation and stuff, and it seems as though they want you to actually have the ability to connect to different like to open channels with other LSPs if you want. I don't know if that means simultaneous connections or not, though.
Yeah. But that's the opening of the channels, even if it's the first one or if it's the subsequent ones, it is it's not necessarily a point of like centralization or custodianship, is what I'm trying to say.
Yes, I agree. Yeah, it's
Right?
I don't see it as being custodial.
Right. So it's just this like whether you have one channel with one person or you have multiple channels, it's kind of like outside of the architecture itself of the node running on your device partially or fully.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. So just a summary, my comments would be that the LN node part is the part where would have to be broken down more, and not just be like just not just one icon for the LN node, but like perhaps like looking at these different 5 layers and saying which ones of these apply to which applications, which one offload certain functions to a remote server, and which one does it on chain on the device.
So that's making sense. Thank you for that. The question I have about that in terms of like breaking down the LN node further. So like, I'm sure I'm like glossing over a lot of technical details with these diagrams. I'm trying to mainly think about like things in terms of like what's expected of the user, like what trade-offs, like what could change between these different configurations. What could change for the user, or what are they risking by choosing one configuration versus another? So my question about like offloading those 5 layers to different services, are there any kind of benefits or risks or trade-offs that the user that we might need to think about for the user when offloading those 5 services or those 5 layers?
Yeah, well, so I think with any of those layers that you're offloading to any remote service, one, you're trusting them, that they one, uphold certain like privacy properties for you, and 2, I guess it's kind of linked with that, is they're not doing any kind of censorship, right?
Got it. Privacy and censorship.
Yeah. So if you're here's an example. If you're relying on a remote service to handle all of your routing, right, or route calculations or whatever, maybe they decide to choose the routes that route through some of their own nodes or their partner nodes to get more fees from you or something like this, right?
Yeah, so they're not choosing the optimal route for you; they're choosing the optimal route for them.
Yeah, exactly. So like so that is one of the risks that you're kind of like trading off of, right?
But
Yeah.
the other thing here is too, from what I understand with Breeze, is that they use the turbo channels, so they don't actually open a channel for you until somebody actually sends you stuff. So your node might not have any channels, but they still advertise like, hey, if you want to send some sats to Steven, I can connect you to him. But then only when something actually comes in, then they open that channel on the fly and send it over. So in that way, you being a leaf node that only connects to Breeze, the Breeze LSP actually helps you. It optimizes kind of your experience because it does things only as needed.
Gotcha.
So I don't know. There's a lot to dig in there. It's like a whole topic in itself. And the channel management thing, I feel like a lot of it will come down to your fee experience. Because if you manage your own channels, you could probably get some good connections and you might be set for your life. You might never have to pay open and closing fees. But if you have an LSP that kind of manages liquidity for you here and does submarine swaps and whatnot, you might actually be more frequently faced with fees.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's like there's a lot of stuff in there that's very tricky to think about without working directly on this.
I'm not sure exactly I would agree with that, but I also don't understand it like fully. Um, uh, 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 that problem. I think what's probably going to end up happening is that most people would just end up with one channel at some LSP, and I think Roy was talking about it. It's like you're paying like a monthly subscription or whatever or usage for that connection to the LSP. And I think someone spoke about like trampoline payments and whatnot before. And I think that's with Phoenix. They have this so that if you're offline, they hold, and sorry if I'm wrong, I haven't done like the interviews and stuff with them yet, but from what I understand with it, it's like uh, if a payment gets sent to you, since you're the only they're the only person with a channel with you, and you're not able to have any other channels, they are able, if you're offline, they are able to hold the payment before the final hop, which is to your node. But they will send that like settlement notice to the person paying, right? And then when you get online, it hops over to yours. So I think that's what it's meant by the trampoline one. But yeah, I have to get into it a bit more.
Yeah, this is super interesting stuff. It seems like all of us are kind of reading and learning and picking up different pieces of this. And the trick is just how does all of this reflect in the user experience? Because some of it might be totally invisible, ideally, but only if like this server stuff, this ecosystem of LSPs is really smooth.
Yeah, I mean, my ideal, situation is where we have to talk about as little of this as possible in the design guide. So I imagine that a lot of the work I'm doing in these kinds of documents is more educational and learning and exploration and all of that. And hopefully we could just distill this down into like, what are the user experience problems to solve when we're designing?
Yeah, and that's where we do need to understand it to figure out what we do not need to talk about.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but overall, I really like these diagrams and stuff. They're they're a great start in the direction of like what we need. So yeah, really great work there.
And thanks, Johns. And I'll definitely I've perused the 5 layers diagram, I think, a little bit. And now that I'm working my way through Ellen book, I'm going to study that a little bit more and figure out what those trade-offs are. But yeah, knowing about the privacy and censorship thing are definitely going to be, those are probably things we at least need to mention, I think, when we're talking about this content.
Yeah, I have some information on where we're kind of like mapping the LDK to those 5 layers as well. So yeah, we're trying to figure out like what are the different components of LDK and those batteries and whatnot, and how do they align with this kind of like layered approach. Because yeah, again, like what you do is you may decide to offload. You're building an application. You may decide to offload part of those layers to some external server, your own server or whatever. So yeah, that's why we're trying to map the LDK to it.
Yeah, and you can offload it to other servers, your own server, or even within the Lightning Network to other nodes.
Yeah,
Lots
perhaps.
of options. So I think the channel backup can be offloaded, no? I thought I saw that somewhere.
Well, yeah, channel backup could be to your iCloud as well, right?
No, yeah, but I thought it could be uploaded to other nodes. But I don't know, I might be making this up. Just learning constantly here.
I think yeah, there's some way, like, I guess in theory, as long as it's encrypted, it could be, distributed wherever. But I don't know. I guess that just depends on how well it's encrypted, I guess.
Yeah, I'm just a note for everyone. I'm gonna be having a meeting. Me and Arvinder, we're gonna be having a interview with Roy from Breeze.
Cool.
So I will share a document with like kind of like the interview structure, and if you guys wanna jump in there and like ask any specific questions, yeah, and we'll try to extract it from him.
He is whip smart. I read all his stuff. I read all his blog posts the last week or so. He's a very smart person.
Brilliant, yeah.
Very cool. When is that happening?
We haven't settled on a time yet, but it'll be like either this week or next week. I'm also having a call with one guy from the community who did some, I forgot his name now. John something, I think. He did a prototype application with like a chat messenger on.
John Cantrell.
Yeah, him. Yeah, a chat messenger, and I'm gonna also be doing an interview with him just to understand some of the stuff that he's architecture related things as well.
That's a good one as well, because John is planning to do like a reference implementation using BDK and LDK, and it could actually be a project for the design community to help out with as well. Like it could be a playground to test some different UI and UX experiences as well.
He already wants to use the Bitcoin icons.
Yeah, exactly. And he's when I spoke to him, he said he wants to use the design guide as very much in the project. So it could be an opportunity to play around with some different user experiences as well.
Yeah, I think if we have a project that we could be like close to that's developing on the LDK and stuff, then like because it has all these components broken up, then we can start to like understand them individually quite well, like as the person's building them.
Super cool. Slightly different topic, but also on the same topic. Tomorrow is the first Mastering Lightning book, whatever it's called. Stephen, yeah, I know you're already way past that point.
No, I'm excited. I'm gonna join your call.
Oh, awesome, cool. Yeah, you already had the first one in Atlanta, right?
Yeah.
So tomorrow is that one. So I'm going to send a reminder in Slack for people to just kind of read up ahead of time and come with questions. But do you have any thoughts for the structure or how it should work? Or are you excited about it? Do you think it's going to be boring? What do you think? What's your... Stephen's pumped. I can tell that.
I think these things work. Yeah, if you do attend, you have to do the reading beforehand. Otherwise, one, the conversation don't really go anywhere if people haven't done the reading, and two, just for yourself, you'll just be lost otherwise if other people have done the reading and you're kind of just there. That was my experience when I missed a week or two of chain code study groups, although that is like intense to another level. So maybe it's not the most fair comparison, but yeah, you definitely have to do the reading.
Yeah, I'm curious if a lot of design people will show up, or if it's more going to be the developer-minded peeps.
Well, I think, to be honest, with my take on it, is like first just looking at it now, like the first.
You're breaking up a lot, Connor.
Like, sorry, yeah. Can you hear me now?
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I'm just going to shut up in a minute anyway. But yeah, I was just going to say the first couple of chapters, I think, would be good for this community. I think beyond that, it does get a bit crazy. So.
Well, that's okay. Dig into the chapters, and if you get to a certain point where no one's interested anymore, then don't have to schedule the calls anymore, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I'm always thinking it would be nice if we could balance some of the more theoretical stuff with more practical stuff. Do some design explorations, do this wallet playtime thing, set up our own lightning ring of fires. I don't know.
Well, here's the thing: if people don't understand the content of the chapters, that's that could be a problem as you get deeper into it. But I think as long as there's someone who's willing to take the initiative on a particular chapter and be like, I'm the one who's going to talk about this with the group, that would be helpful, particularly as you get to the later chapters. Like, John's, you clearly, study lightning and pretty good technical detail. So, if you had time and you wanted to take one of the later chapters that gets more technical and kind of lead people through it, that's the kind of thing that would probably be helpful. And, that way there's like kind of an activity around it. And, people, I think it should just encourage people to read it and be comfortable with not understanding it. Yeah. Because sometimes you read a complicated piece of text, maybe a piece of philosophy or a technical document, and you read it through the first time just so that your mind kind of has read, just so that your mind has kind of absorbed the fact that it exists. And you're not going to get it the first time you read it. And that's okay. But you skim it, you kind of get the basic outlines of it, and then you talk about it with your friends, and then, neurons start firing or whatever, then you start to understand it a little bit more.
2 weeks later in the shower, you're like, yes, I got it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. By the way, I'm not sure who is going to lead the call tomorrow. I'll have to ask Thunder Biscuit, see if he can do it.
Yeah, and having somebody lead the call probably isn't as critical on the first one, but will probably be, I think, not lead, but, organize, mentor, whatever. Be more important on the later chapters.
Yeah, for sure. Cool. We're 10 minutes over the hour, 7:11 over here. Anything else you'd like to chat about? Are you ready for dinner, breakfast, whatever is appropriate in your time zone?
Ready for lunch.
I found Satoshi.
Sorry?
I found Satoshi.
Okay. How'd you do that?
I'll post the image on the Slack, but there's this ship in the port here, and it's called Satoshi, and I'm like, what the hell is going on?
You'll have to go over there and see if there's a Bitcoiner up there.
Yeah, I got it.
So it's a citadel, or her citadel.
It's a cruise ship. I'll post the photo in random, but
okay.
It's a cruise ship called Satoshi, and I'm like, I don't know what's going on. I'm like, I didn't know Satoshi was a ship.
Okay, real quick, I'm going to stop the recording here.
All right.